The South African Poultry Association is warning of a potential spread of highly pathogenic avian influenza as wild birds migrate from Europe to South Africa this winter. With the virus already affecting Europe, the US, Argentina as well, the SAPA urges proactive measures such as culling infected flocks and vaccination to protect local poultry farms. But let's discuss this further with the National Council of Societies for the Prevention of Cruelty's Senior Inspector, Nazareth Appalsamy. He's with the NSPSA. Nazareth, it's great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us today. When we spoke to the Department of Agriculture on the issue of avian flu, their position was that farmers just need to follow biosecurity measures, but other than that, there is no need to panic. Would you agree with that assessment?
Good afternoon, Michelle. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the listeners for tuning in. So the NSPCA is a statutory body. Our mandate is the prevention of cruelty to animals. We certainly do not agree with the government, and we can say that what now, with all honesty, because we have been to these farms where these birds have been infected since 2017. We know that producers have done their level best with biosecurity protocols. And we know right now that even if you have bird-proof houses, that wild birds, while they may be the silent carriers, are not the only vector of this highly pathogenic disease. We also must reiterate to government that the US and parts of the globe are currently culling birds, and that is not due to poor biosecurity. It is evident from previous outbreaks that biosecurity is a good measure, but it does not mean that your birds will not be infected.
Well, that's very worrying indeed, isn't it, Nazareth, that this is the kind of advice we're getting from government insofar as the possibility of avian flu is concerned. Why would government want to downplay what might be the impact on the sector?
So I think I should say that we are not opposed to biosecurity. In fact, biosecurity is best practice and we all adhere to it. I think that we have been negotiating or in discussion with government since 2023 about vaccines that have been available since 2023, late 2023. We are in 2025 now, and producers are currently panicking because international experts, of which we have consulted with, believe that South African birds has a very high chance of being infected. And we know that government plays a role when it comes to food security. However, if you take, for example, FMD at the moment in the country, there's numerous provinces that have been infected, but the government has rolled up their sleeves and are vaccinating these animals. So we're not sure why there is so much of red tape when it comes to the rollout of vaccines. But what we can say is that producers have not been able to comply.
So, I mean, are these numbers right? In 2023, we saw 90% of poultry in Gauteng either being culled or dying due to the inability of the very biosecurity measures that government is recommending to contain this outbreak. Even culling measures didn't contain the outbreak. Would that be an accurate assessment of what happened 2 years ago?
So there was a very large amount of birds infected, and the NSPCA was on site. And quite frankly, we are sick and tired of having to be present, having to cull these birds and watch the suffering. And I think that this is why we have called upon government. We know that government has called the NSPCA reckless for calling upon government to hear the calls of the poultry industry, the producers, and the farmers, and basically take heed to what is happening globally. So I think that's where we are at the moment, is that our appeal is to government to take this matter very, very seriously, and that experts, international experts, are warning us that we will most probably be affected.
So is it correct to say, Nazareth, that avian flu is sort of with us every migration season? What is the responsibility of countries in the north insofar as the spread of avian flu is concerned? Or is this going to be an annual event down south?
So we understand that, wild birds carry this disease. And when they migrate back to South Africa, they are silent carriers because it may not necessarily kill them. But birds are only one vector of the disease on farms, and that's why biosecurity is important. We have humans, we have other vectors, it can be rodents, it can be flies, it can be feathers. So whilst we have poultry houses that are bird-proof, there are numerous other ways that poultry producers can get infected, especially through the delivery of feed or to personnel coming onto farms. So there are many reasons. However, if we had vaccinated, it would certainly reduce the impact. We've seen this in, most people now herd immunity. We've seen that the more you vaccinate, the lower the risk of spread of disease. And this is why we called upon government to hear the cries of the poultry industry and for us as a welfare organization, because we understand the suffering. In the past, we had to physically cull these birds, and government themselves are not always in the position where they have resources nor the skills to cull. And we foresee that if it does hit South Africa again, how prepared are we? Have we done everything we can to make sure that humane methods are utilized in the event that we have to cull? And have we done everything to minimize the risk?
Sorry, can you give us an update on the vaccination issue? Because obviously, as you say, there is an agreement that vaccination is essential, particularly given the losses of the past few years. Where is South Africa at now in terms of its vaccination program?
So we've had vaccines since 2023, and we know that through our media release and for bringing this into the limelight, we know that government is currently consulting with the poultry producers and industry as a whole. We know that they are looking into how these vaccines can be made available, and hopefully that they'll soon be able to come to an agreement. But as far as we are aware, it still remains out of reach.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a huge impact, won't it? Not only for the industry, but for consumers as well.
Absolutely. We saw it in previous years. We saw the effects it's had on retailers and eggs being limited to individuals. And we saw the price of eggs. So this will have a global effect.
Nazareth Appalsamy, let me thank you for your time this afternoon, giving us some clarity there on statements by the Department of Agriculture insofar as avian flu is concerned. Nazareth is a senior inspector with the NSPSA.